Today is Thursday, June 18th, and this is our weekly developer check-in meeting for Backdrop CMS. Before we get to the agenda, let's have everybody go around with some introductions. What's your name? Where are you from? And if you have something fun you want to share with us, 30 seconds or less, that's not on the agenda, feel free to go ahead and do that. Nate, you're in my top left. Would you like to introduce yourself first?
Sure. I'm Nate Lampton in Oakland, California. I'm a core committer, and yeah, it's the beginning, still kind of the beginning. I guess actually we're a month into it now of a new release. And so I'm excited to get new things happening. That's it. Ta-da.
All right, Justin, would you like to go next?
Yeah, hi, I'm Justin Christopherson. I'm in Denver, Colorado. I'm just helping out where I can and a little bit of server work.
Thank you. Greg, do you want to go next?
Sure. Greg, usually in Australia, but now logging in from Greece. Just the weekly check-in just to get a habit of what's going on and see where I can help.
Great. Joseph?
I'm Joseph Platt from Las Vegas, Nevada, and yeah, I'm a backend developer. I'm just here to help wherever I can.
Thank you. Olaf, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, 1 minute. I was eating, sorry. Yeah, I'm Olaf from Hamburg, and I'm a backdrop lover and enthusiast, like to work with it, and I'm mostly lurking today.
Thank you. Luke, how about you?
Yeah, I'm Luke McCormick. I'm a web product manager in San Ramon, California. I'm leading up the Ready to Wear initiative lead for simplifying appearances in Backdrop. And I'll give a report on updates on that a little bit later on in the meeting.
Great. I am Jen Lampton. I'm also in Oakland, California, and I'm very excited about the user experience meeting we just had. Watch the video if you're curious. All right, let's move on. First thing on our agenda is a section for updates from the PMC. There aren't any actual updates, but I did want to highlight that a couple weeks ago we did approve our first 2 core initiatives, and we still need to write a blog post about those. So I don't know if anyone else is enthusiastic about that, but open to volunteers.
Enthusiastic.
Do you want me to write a blog post about the Ready to Wear thing?
I thought it would be good if we had one blog post about both initiatives, sort of being like, hey, by the way, Backdrop has initiatives first, and then we should do a follow-up with a more specific one on each initiative. So if you want to start thinking about the blog post about the Ready to Wear initiative, that would be awesome. But I think we need an announcement that it exists first.
Roger that.
Okay. Related to the website, I got really excited yesterday about replacing all of our master branches with main branches, and I deleted the master branch on backdropcms.org, which accidentally closed everybody's pull requests. So I wanted to publicly apologize for doing that. I have reopened all of the pull requests and assigned them to the new main branch. And in doing so, I also reviewed most of them and merged many of them. So apologies to everybody. Hopefully getting some of those features merged will be good enough consolation. I accidentally closed them all in the first place. Okay, that is it for general announcements. Let's turn it over to Nate to talk about Backdrop releases.
Okay. Well, as many of you may have noticed, there was a release yesterday. 1.16.2 came out, coordinated with Drupal as a security release to button down a cross-site request forgery issue in Forms API that affected Backdrop and every version of Drupal. So that came out just yesterday. It did also include a dozen other small fixes. And yeah, so it's nice to have a new release out there. The upstreams for most things are updated, Pantheon and the tugboats, and I know Jeff did Composer as well. So updates getting pushed out all over the place. I know that there's a lot of RTBC issues, and we'll talk about those in a second, but I was feeling a little bit gun shy because of this issue. Sorry, Gregory, it was one of yours that you pre-ordered the jQuery libraries and accidentally broke JavaScript on some of the pages.
I did take a quick look at it. I couldn't see anywhere where I changed the weights, but it was changed, obviously. So I'll have another look and try to fix it. Be more careful this time. Thanks. Sorry.
I took a quick look at it too, and I also couldn't immediately figure out why it caused the problems that it did, but it clearly caused some. So that issue 3879 is just reverted, and so it got put back to needs work.
Yep.
So on 16.3, we still have a pretty healthy queue of RTBC issues that we won't recap again because they're the same as last week's, but we cannot remove blocks when switching layouts. Issue 4420 is RTBC. Making views strings translatable. Issue 4382 is RTBC. Let's see. I guess there are others, but they're not all in this list. We have an issue that is rather important that we get figured out, that there's a visual regression in the list of text formats. It's issue 4407, and that's just that when you look at the list of text formats as of 1.16, they're not displayed in the right weight order. They are saved in the right weight order and they're used as the right weight order, but it's awfully confusing when you go and visit that form and they're shown in alphabetical order rather than by their weight. So there's no pull request yet. So 4407 is one that could use a coder to come in and get that sorted out. Let's see, there are some new things that happened. Restore views pager by date, issue 2766. This is a regression from the date module that's in Backdrop that Indigozella, I think, put together a pull request that fixes the pager so that you can have previous page and next page lists in views based on dates, which is necessary for calendaring. So 2766 is the pull request that they've put together, and it currently needs review. And Indigozella noted that there also are no tests currently. And so test coverage there is also needed. Let's see. Jeff says something about the next item, which is Jeff Serendipity, who is not on this meeting, but is on the agenda making notes. So PHPCS automated code checks, something that we've been talking about for a long time, where when you make a pull request, PHPCS, the software that checks the syntax of your entire code base. And the idea is that we would have it automatically run on the code that is being changed. And so issue 3213 is a long open issue for discussing how we can make it so that that becomes automated to happen on pull requests. So let's see. Is this Jeff or is this you, Jen, that's saying you started looking at GitHub Actions?
Jeff said he was looking at GitHub Actions, but I posted a link to my GitHub Actions thing that's already working. So hopefully that'll help.
Sorry, we missed the first part of that.
Jeff added the comment saying that he was looking into GitHub Actions, and I added the one with the working example after that. So I'm answering Jeff's question.
Okay. So, so you have been doing some work on this, and your proof of concept currently exists within a contrib module. Is that right?
Yeah, I was trying to see if I could get it working on my contrib projects, and I've got it. I've got it running the tests. I haven't got it passing them.
Running PHPCS, you mean?
Yeah.
Cool. I don't think there's a comment on issue 3213. Could you post something there saying that? Oh, you did. Oh no, you didn't. It's been a week since anything was posted there.
Yeah, I think I posted it somewhere else. I'll find it.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, also added to the agenda just now, issue 4441, remove all instances of blacklist and whitelist from core. So this is derived or related to or spurred on by Black Lives Matter that's happening kind of globally, and kind of related to Jen's earlier comment about removing master branches and renaming them to main, which we did for backdropcms.org. Just trying to remove all like racially driven or historically racially driven phrasing and technology tech terminology from our code base. Jen, can you give us any more information about the status of this issue?
I would like to get that done soon because it's super relevant right now and I would love to get it out of the way. I also am going to need help from core committers to handle some of the backwards compatibility stuff. There's a Drupal function with the name whitelist in it that I don't know if we need to, like, Drupal is going to be replacing their function name. So I don't know if we need to add another wrapper function to Backdrop to handle that. And then there was a cache key that I don't know if we need to handle specially or if we could just do a cache clear and we wouldn't need the key anymore. So there's two places in the pull request where I added notes that I think I need advice on how to handle renaming things in a way that won't break anything.
So for these changes, it's probably not something that would be in 116.3 because it would potentially
well, it depends on the answers to those two questions.
Yeah.
So if we do need to have any of that backwards compatibility stuff in there, it would get pushed to 117. But if we don't need it, we can, and it's just string changes, we can do that sooner.
Yeah, it also wouldn't hurt to proceed with this a little bit more incrementally. Like there's some places where it might just be code comments, and other places where it's the names of functions. And so, and even worse, there's some places where it's configuration, because kind of easiest functions are fairly easy to wrap, and then configuration starts getting a little complicated.
Yeah, so there's that one function I mentioned and the one configuration I mentioned, and everything else is code comments or variable names.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's a great issue. Thanks for finding that. I see that the discussion in there is also great that it's covering other terminology in other places as well. So if you're looking for an interesting discussion and clearinghouse on racial terms used in various ways in our code and in our branch names and such, that's a great place to read up on it.
There was a relevant issue, thing that we fixed about removing patronizing terms like just and simple. I was trying to find that one, but I couldn't find it. We've done that already, right? Or am I?
I think we did.
Yeah.
There was a lot of terminology. It's like it's just this and simply that,
Yes,
and obviously, and I think that we got rid of all of those. So that was all just code comments. Yeah, that was a long time ago. I really liked that issue as well. Okay, you guys have anything else that you would like to bring up related to 116.3 or these issues?
Just a minor thing. I reopened 2805 because Herb mentioned that we need documentation. So I've started by creating a change record for it. And it's currently sitting in draft. Herb tweaked it a bit. I tweaked it a little bit more. So yeah, If you're happy with it, you can publish it, and then maybe we'll follow up with some advanced installation documentation or something like that, if that's not enough.
Yeah, that sounds great. I saw that we tweeted about this, but I'm not sure if we linked to anything.
So the documentation that we have in backdrop.cms.org, the main site is not fitting, in my opinion, for that, because it's a bit developy subject. So it should be in API, but I'm not sure if just the change record is enough, or if we should have something more elaborate explaining things.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like, so the tweet referred to the blog post that Jeff wrote. That was just the Backdrop CMS 116
Article.
release thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, the change record sounds like a great idea, because we need something that is canonical, you know, like here's the place to talk about this one thing. And I think the change record would be a great place to include that.
Yeah, try to include as many examples, like possible examples of how that would be, like nested settings or arrays.
Yeah, I haven't, I'm not logged in at the moment, so I'm getting there.
Yeah, no worries.
If you haven't already, the tests that were added with the pull request have a number of examples of, you know, overriding certain things. And so
Yeah, I pulled some from the actual section in the settings PHP, and then Herb took some from the actual code. He mentions that in the issue.
Okay, super. Great. I wonder, yeah, there are some things that, nice little caveat section, don't override everything willy-nilly. Could also, I'm not sure if this is the appropriate place to put it, but there's some kind of interesting UX things that happen with overridden configuration as well, that if you're looking at a form, it shows you the overridden config, you know, what it is that's actually reading. But when you save it, it doesn't actually update what's in the config file. It leaves what's there previously. And so
Yeah.
That's a definitely a deviation from the way that Drupal 7 worked with variable overrides, that
Yeah, so
what's in your config
think-
file doesn't actually change, even if you resave the config form.
Yeah, so we have a follow-up issue for that, either to just ignore saving those bits that are being overridden, or locking those things in the UI
Mhm.
and showing the default value, which is pulled from the actual override.
Yep. Yeah, locking them gets a little tricky doing that universally, but in the places where we're using system settings form and that config file, hash config file or something like that, that would actually be possible still, or be possible there. Great, thanks, Gregory.
Thanks, Herb.
Okay, so 117, we can move on to the feature releases. 117 will be the next minor version of Backdrop, and then it'll be coming out September 15th with feature freeze on the 1st of September. And we don't have a whole lot of items queued up for the 117 release currently. We still have Jen's unofficial issue using the admin theme on login pages, issue 4410. Jen, do you have a note here saying that it's not official, and so are we going to remove this issue from the agenda, do you think?
Yeah, so I think the last 3 weeks I requested that somebody else mark it as being an official issue, but nobody else wants it to be an official issue. So it will not be an official issue and will get removed from the agenda.
I don't think that's quite the way that worked. I think
has yet decided that it should be an official issue.
Which one was it though? Sorry. Which issue was that?
4410.
Sorry, I'm not.
That's okay. There's lots of other stuff that's also exciting. And it just doesn't mean it won't get in if it's not an official issue. So, fine.
Oh yeah, I would like that. so don't worry about it. Just I haven't been around, I haven't been around the queue lately, so that's why it's not marked. I wanted to mention that since we don't have a lot of items, as low hanging fruits, I would like to get those out of the way, even if it means that now early on is just blank pages. We have two issues about creating dedicated sections for security and performance. And once we have those in place, we can start collating settings from all over the place. But I think we should start doing it. Try to find those issues.
Let's see. So imagining that it has now been confirmed, Jen, do you have any updates on 4410?
No, I haven't looked at it in a week,
Okay.
but I will go look at it.
Yeah, one thing I think that is currently pulled up about it is that because the tabs are removed from the page, the local tasks, so like login, reset password, etc. We might need some way, figure out some way.
I added one link but forgot the other one.
Like inside the form.
Yeah.
Yeah. What happens if another module adds another tab though?
There won't ever, I don't know.
There
may never be any tabs.
Yeah. So I wonder if maybe we could do something just to like get local tasks and then also like put like a bullet list or something like that down at the bottom.
Yeah.
That I don't think the tabs make sense. So I think that's a good move. Okay. But we still need a place to put any links that get expanded into that allocation.
It would be good if whatever we decided was something that would be really easy for other people who wanted to do the same thing could copy. So maybe if that doesn't exist already, creating some kind of a pattern, you just be like, call this function and print this out and you'll be good.
Yeah, I think there is a way to get it pretty easily right now, but I'm not sure.
I'll poke it and see.
Okay. All right. Other issues. We have the initiatives that are currently proceeding. Jeff Serendipity is the leader of the telemetry initiative. He posted into the agenda that there's no progress this week. Thanks, Jeff, for checking in there. We also have the Ready to Wear initiative. Theme development should not be necessary to use Backdrop. Luke is the initiative lead on that, which I think you guys just had a huge brainstorming call just before this one. But is there anything else you guys would like to cover today?
Yeah. You can hear me? I'm successfully unmuted?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Good. All right. Well, there's definitely process issues with it. We have been experimenting with different places to sort of post about updates and get discussions and things like that. Most of the action has been happening in Zulip, but there's a feeling bouncing around, and including I agree with this, that maybe more of it should happen on GitHub or the forums or elsewhere. So I wanted, this is the group where we have 4,400 GitHub issues, so that's a lot of experience with GitHub. I'd like to address that. Should we spin off? Should I spin off? Should it be spun off? Issues for each piece of the initiative as we knock off things, or should that just be a checkbox within a big issue? Should we do meta issues? I'm looking for GitHub help here.
Jen or Greg, do you guys have thoughts on that?
I'm not sure. Can we use the projects? Because
projects is still limited to one GitHub repository. So I would say probably what we should do is have something somewhere, like my instinct is the forum for now, because that can link anywhere, that links to everything that we're working on that's related. And that could be a meta issue in multiple repositories, or it could be individual issues in different repositories, but just some documentation page somewhere that has all the links. And then when we figure out, like, what maybe the other initiatives are doing, we might end up with a better process where we can manage it. But since all of the initiative stuff is currently in the forum, that's where I would start.
All right. Well, there's one thread in the forum. Should we just put everything into that thread? You think it'll fit?
I think there, like, maybe the link to all the issues should, or the list of all the issues should be in the top post, and then any conversation can continue to happen in that thread.
Right turn and next left turn.
Okay. So if somebody wanted to catch up, they could just read that thread form and be like, not worry about that they're missing anything. They've got everything.
Yeah.
And
All right.
On the flip side of that, Luke, I think that a meta issue that bullet lists and links to all of the sub issues, once you get to that point, would also be useful for a clearinghouse if it turns into a spider of several issues where you have to go through these 7 pull requests to get your objective. Then it would be good to split those out into separate issues and then have a meta to track them all. But I don't think we're at that point yet. So.
Okay, yeah, I don't think it's really issues so much as steps in the process that we're looking at this point. But I think it's relatively sequential. I mean, there's a certain parallelism that gets in there of you can do things, figure out something enough to like move to the next step without having it, without tabling discussion on that thing. So I was thinking a certain amount of threading would be desirable. What I was expecting, and I'm happy to do in the forums. I thought somebody was going to educate me on meta issues, and I was predicting the answer would be a meta issue. But is that not it?
So the only reason I'm against a meta issue is because it's going to be like one issue in 4 different repositories. And I'm not sure that there's a lot of value in having a meta issue in one of those repositories if only one of the pull requests is for that repository. But Nate, would you think maybe there would be? Because then at least we'd have something somewhere to refer to for everything else.
Well, this happens pretty regularly with issues that affect backdropcms.org or like the project browser, for example. Like the project browser, unfortunately, frequently requires like updates to core, to project module, and to backdropcms.org. So it's across 3 repos. But generally speaking, people put it in the main backdrop issues repository, that the meta or even the feature request, because from an end user perspective, they don't know which repositories are what, like you say, like finding it. So any meta should be in the main repository, so that, because that's where people are going to look.
Okay, all right, that actually clarifies it well, and I will focus things then on the forum issue, and I mean we can revisit this in the future if for some reason it needs to be, but for the moment I've got my answer there. Okay, what else have we discovered? There was actually quite a bit of activity there this week, and I need to write it up in a report because relying on my memory to pull it out right now is proving a little sketchy. There's definitely activity. I guess the other thought, and we might have just answered this, but the other thought I was having is how do we make sure that everybody that wants to be involved is involved? How do we get things? And I think the answer we just came up with is everyone goes to the forum, to the thing, and if they're anywhere else, we'll direct them to the forum to make sure that's the source of truth, at least for the moment. All right, do I interpret that correctly?
I believe so, yeah. Although usually I prefer GitHub as a place for discussions, but that's a like a personal preference. And I respect the fact that others said that maybe discussions should be had elsewhere, and then GitHub issues should be opened when we have a path forward, like a decision, like a plan.
All right, there. That sounds pretty good. So that's the extent of my report for the moment. Although I don't want to shut the door if anybody else that's on the call wants to jump in with thoughts about the Ready to Wear initiative. I'm happy to keep it in play.
Luke, what about the license questions? Didn't we want to talk about it?
Yes. Thank you. That was definitely something that came up in Zulip that the thought was, let's talk about this in the development meeting. All right. So one of the things that came up in sort of as we're mucking around looking for solutions is we found theme collections that are seemingly kind of public, but we're worried about the license. What was the license that those themes we were looking at are under?
Creative
It was a Creative Commons attribution license.
Right. So what is our thought for our license requirements and the pieces of the puzzle that might dip into different open source licenses? What should we keep our eye on for that? From
memory, I think that all projects should have a license that's GPL friendly. I'm not an expert in licensing, but that's what I roughly remember from the last time we had a discussion with regards to that.
Yeah, I'm trying to find there are some tools out there that are license compatibility calculators that say like if something is this, then it can also be that. For example, like MIT can be made GPL. Yeah. But it gets a little crazy with when you start getting into themes, like because like Creative Commons is about like attribution. Like it's not really it's not like a legal framework so much. It's not I don't know. I think what I'm saying is that themes and imagery and assets have a different fundamental licensing scheme than software does. And so figuring out compatibility between those two, it gets a little trickier. So, but I'm sure that we're not the first people to encounter this. So I would say let's just start doing some homework on it.
Okay, yeah. So we wanted to throw that in, saying that's an issue that has entered our minds recently, and we're exploring that and trying to figure out how that affects everything else.
Yep. And as I said, I'm not sure he's joined Zulip chat, but last time that we had the discussion, it seemed like, at least that's what I recall, that Kevin was sort of like an expert on this matter. Like, so at the end of the day, we can just ping him and say, hey, so like, what are your thoughts on this specific license or whatever, if it's compatible? If he can spare 2 minutes.
Yeah, and another thing is, I think, or I believe that these are all edge cases in a way, because we won't copy or clone these, which are mostly templates. So HTML templates with some CSS and maybe some JavaScript.
Yeah,
And
they're basically being used as inspiration, so it's not a complete copy.
yes, and that's so it's hard to handle. And so I think your idea is good to reach out to such. If we want to use such templates as inspiration, we could, however, reach out to the authors and ask them what they think about it. Maybe they say, "Oh, nice, put it on Backdrop."
Yeah, maybe
or
the
they
support
say,
open source.
And it might not end up mattering, because we might not feel the need to use anything that has any questionable licensing. So I mean, the way I would approach it at this point is, I mean, the licenses for all the stuff we're looking at are pretty open to, you're allowed to look at it, play with it, discuss it. They're definitely not locked down proprietary. So we can use them for inspiration and sort of discussion. And then when it gets to the point, if we want to actually include it in our product and we have to worry about compatible licenses, then we cross that bridge at that point and figure out if we can move ahead with that component, or if we need to find a substitute. How does that sound?
mm-hmm.
Yep.
So
All
doing
right.
some quick looking around. I'll send, I can't really send this link to you like while you're in the car, but I'll send it to you over in Zulip. That there's Creative Commons that we're asking about. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds right.
They have a page actually that officially says what licenses are compatible with Creative Commons. So how
Really? Cool.
useful is that? And there are only two listed: the free art license and GPL version 3. So that raises some interesting questions.
Yes.
Because we still distribute under GPL version 2. And so I think we have some caveats in our contrib approval process that say you can have a GPL version 3 module. So you can choose whether to be 2 or 3 when you make a module, but core itself is still 2. And so I don't know what that really means still.
Yeah, I wish life was easier and like all these legalities were out of the way.
Yeah, and this is one particular Creative Commons license, so that also makes it even more complex. So just like GPL, there's different versions of Creative Commons, and what they're compatible with may vary depending on what license it is. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Let's see. Do you guys have anything else you guys would like to discuss?
Well, just a bit of a guidance as to what could be acceptable as MVP for 3624, the dedicated security section that I mentioned before. So there's a lot of thoughts on what could be included in that page, but I would like to just add a couple of things and get something done, and then eventually we keep adding things the same way that we've done with the dashboard.
I just now pulled up this issue. I haven't seen this one before. Can you elaborate on this issue?
Yeah, so there's respective tools in Drupal as well, where as a system site administrator, so to say, you would like to have all the security related settings in one place and indicators to see how secure your site is. So the idea is to put everything in a single place under configuration security and gather all settings there. There's a sibling issue for it for dedicated accessibility section. And all these have been marked D8 that one at least has been marked as D8 compatibility, sort of like comparability, as in parity, whatever we call it. So yes, the whole idea is that we have a dedicated section, especially if you look at the last comment that I have there. There's a security review, sort of like module, which sort of like outlines in a report the status of your site, so that system administrators can say, I've ticked all these 10 boxes, or I have a couple of things that I need to do. So my point was that it's been filed for some time now, and it's a sort of like low hanging fruit, as in we just need to specify a permission and a route is my guess, and then just build a page. It could be a home for the trusted host pattern thingy exposed to the UI, as well as other things in the future. But my point is that if we try to make it perfect and wait for all these things to be implemented, it's going to take forever. So I was thinking of just getting 2 or 3 of the things that are most simple to implement, just put it there and then gradually. Would that be acceptable?
I'm gonna have to think about it. I'm not sure how I feel about splitting it off from the status report, but I don't know. I'll have to think. How would you reconcile things like what's on the security report versus what's on the status report?
So status report wouldn't necessarily have every little bit like the X-frame options or setting for blocking users. So this would also be a form where you can configure everything in one go. So it would be a report and a form which holds all security related things.
And then the status report would
have
maybe cross-link over to the security report or something like that.
Yeah, for maybe some of the things like what you call it, security status of modules can still live in the status page because that's where people expect to find it. But yeah, that dedicated section would have both a report and a settings thing.
Yeah, you know what? Something that I see in this screenshot that you posted into the issue that I think would be desirable, that maybe we don't have on the status report, is the ability to skip certain things, because it is possible in some situations that the recommendations that are provided don't apply, or they're not even possible to implement. You know, like maybe if you're saying change the permissions on stuff and people are like, I can't do that. You know, that allowing them to say, you know, suppress or ignore or whatever, to like maybe just downgrade it from, you know, warning to disabled or something.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because if we have a comprehensive set of all of the best practices that can be implemented, not all best practices are possible in all situations. And so I think security review probably includes some things that are best practices but not required, you know. And I don't think that we need to be throwing, you know, we don't need to be alarming people if there's things that they could be doing even if they're not required, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So trusted host patterns, for example, could go away from the status page and into that, because we do not enforce it the way that it's being enforced in Drupal. It's just that we didn't have any other place at the point where we introduced that setting. We just had the status page, and that's where we put it.
Yep.
So yeah, do not unnecessarily bother people with warnings in the status report when there's nothing that they should sort of like specifically do.
Yeah. I could warm up to this, personally, at least. There's still a little bit of me that's thinking contrib module, you know.
Okay, fair enough.
But yeah, we'll continue to kind of think and discuss it. That issue is 3624. Sorry if I just take this discussion off on a complete tangent, but I saw recently, Luke, that you or Greg, that you had mentioned something about the security tab within GitHub. that GitHub rolled out like security checking and security announcements as part of the user interface and dependency checking that they provide. So when you make a release of something, you can specify whether that release has security issues now.
Yeah.
Which first of all is super helpful because that means that we could automate the mark something as security release now, which would be cool. But it would also be nice that GitHub now provides the ability for people to submit and make pull requests that are private for security purposes. And this is kind of an issue that we've been running into, that when we make a pull request against core, or when we have a security related pull request, we have to run it against core publicly the last time before we do the merge to make sure that all of the tests pass. And honestly, we could do that separately, but we still have to wait for the tests to pass. In any case, there's always a public pull request, and we could, using the new capabilities of GitHub, stop doing that and use these private security pull requests instead. However, I other than conceptually GitHub has these abilities, I have no idea how any of it works. So
I don't have a permission to just check. There's a few people only, I guess, core committers that have access that would be able to check that, right?
yeah, and maybe that's some other problems that we need to figure out. That I think you're right, that only committers have access to that, but there are people on the security team that don't have commit access.
Yep.
And well, maybe, that would just be a policy thing that you get commit access, but it's only for one
not
purpose.
allowed.
Yeah. Which I'm fine with. I mean, we trust people with seeing every security hole and backdrop. We can also trust them to be honest about what they merge,
Or in this specific case, do not ever merge anything because it's not our job. Yeah.
Right. So anyway, it's interesting that there's some new options there. I bet that this would cause us to need to reconcile our code repository with the issue repository, though. Right now we have them separate because that was an old GitHub recommendation when they didn't have better permissions to have two repositories, one for issues and one for code. And now I'm starting to feel like there's increasingly drawbacks to that arrangement, and things like this security functionality are probably related to that it could get tricky. We're just not using GitHub the way that we're supposed to anymore since they changed the recommendation.
Yeah, I'm sure that GitHub would offer that, but GitLab at least there's restrictions around merging pull requests, like it requires at least one review and maybe from specific people as well. So if the CI fails, or if the CI fails or things like that, like you can block merging. So we're cautious about it. We can still give access to people, but the merge requests will
Okay, well, that's just more things to think about. We're kind of running over time. Thanks, guys, and see you guys next week.
Yeah.
Bye.